Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Chats with Emily's. We are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turned out a poem 339, I Tend My Flowers for Thee Here. Background information is so important here, as we've been predicting now for the previous 338 poems. Emily as Daisy will be stated outright in this one. When it was published for the first time in the London Mercury of February 1929. Now, exactly who it is that she is the Daisy of, the thy Daisy, has been the subject of a lot of debate. Many think it's probably Sam Boyle's. This is another Sam Boyle's poem. We're back to poems 31 and 223. And of course any number of other poems where he's traveling in Europe and she's writing to tell him how much she misses him. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left hand side, Chats with Emily, a playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through a set of introductory comments and our preceding 338 poems. We just finished with 338. I know that he exists. This poem has a similar template in that in the last poem, she says an affirmation and then works the entire rest of the poem to kind of maybe challenge or disprove it. Here we're going to play the same game. She's going to argue that she is taking care of her garden when in fact she'll make the counter argument, I'm not actually a very good gardener right now. Now, to speak of gardens, we immediately, of course, think of Genesis 3 and the Milton Paradise Lost motif that we finished with in our last lecture. And of course, the garden here can represent or reflect a certain type of frustration. Some have seen this even as sexual, and I find that remarkable. You remember in Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 2, when Hamlet, oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, resolve itself into a two, or that Providence had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. You'll remember that he says, Fie on a fie, the world is an unweeded garden that goes to see things rank and gross in nature, possess it merely. There is no gardener for this world. You'll also remember that in Matthew 13, 3 through 9, in that parable of the sower, right, that the seed is thrown out. Here, Emily is sometimes, by some scholars, perceived as the lovesick gardener. She says it this way, I tend my flowers for thee, bright absentee. My fuchsia's coral seams rip while the sower dreams. Geraniums tint and spot, low daisies dot my cactus, splits her beard to show her throat. Carnations tip their spice, and bees pick up a hyacinth I hid, puts up a ruffled head, and odors fall from flasks so small, you marvel how they held. Globe roses break their satin flake upon my garden floor, yet thou not there. I had as lief they bore no crimson more. Thy flower be gay, her lord away, it ill becometh me. I'll dwell in calyx gray, while modestly I'll lay thy daisy draped for thee. Now again, the thee of the poem is the significant challenge. If we do argue that it is Sam Boyle, and we do argue that she is very attracted to him or she longs for him to return, whether you read this poem sexually or not, I'll leave to you. Notice she says, though, I take care of my flowers, I tend my flowers for thee, bright absentee. In other words, while you're away, I'm taking care of my garden. Again, he's traveling, Sam Boyle is traveling in Europe. But then immediately she starts talking about how badly she's doing this job. My fuchsia's coral seams rip. Some have seen this as a possible deflowering, a virginal deflowering even, while the sower dreams. We're again to Matthew 13 in the parable of the sower. I think the key word here is dreams. In other words, she's not tending her flowers, but dreaming of whoever it is she's referencing. And then she talks about all the problems with the flowers. The geraniums are tinted and spotted. The daisies are low and dotted. That is to say, they haven't been properly tended. Her cactus now is overgrown. It splits her beard to show her throat. Think about that powerful image of the throat showing. Go back to our study of Homer's Iliad. You'll remember several times that when you need to show your subservience, you will go on your knees and expose your throat. Carnations, of course, will tip their spice. There's all kinds of potential sexual language here. Bees pick up a hyacinth I hid. I think hid is the key word here. Like her flowers, she's trying to make the argument that Emily has not only a voice but a body, that is to say, a body that could be undressed, possibly. She says it puts out a ruffled head, odors fall from flasks so small. I told you guys, 77 poems. She emphasizes the smallness or fragility she has. You marvel, again, speaking to whoever it is, maybe Sam Boyle's, you marvel how they held globe roses. Of course, roses is significant symbol. Break, notice from rip to break their satin flake upon my garden floor. floor. Some have read this sexually. Yet thou not there, again, traveling in Europe. I had as lief they bore, leave gladly, right? No crimson more. Thy flower be gay. Happy here, right? Her lord away, back to absentee. It ill becometh me, key phrase, right? In other words, I'm not going to do anything but be modest, will be her line, her word a few seconds later. I'll dwell in calyx gray, right? That is to say, the unopened daisy gray. How modestly I'll lay thy daisy draped for thee. A daisy in mourning, we might say. When we get to poem 903, we'll read it this way. I hid myself within my flower, that fading from your vase, you unsuspecting feel for me, almost a loneliness. Well, what are we going to do with a fun little poem like this? I think at 2A, she's saying it is hard to be away from the one that you love. At 2B, I love all the hidden, potentially you might read it as sexual language. At 3A, I mentioned Hamlet, and I think Hamlet and Genesis 3 and Milton are all standing, obviously Matthew 13 as well, standing behind this poem. Finally, to own a poem like this at 3B. What was a time when you struggled to be away from the one you cared about, or your pal, or even your lover, and how did you present the language to let them know? Emily's amazing, right? Thank you.